We are a group of spiritual freethinkers who gather to celebrate life, build community, and better the world. Wherever you are in your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. I'm Laura Wink, your worship associate for this morning, and our service is being led by Carrie Graff. Welcome back, and thank you to Scott Wright again for providing music for us this summer. This service is also being live streamed to our YouTube channel. We plan to continue with hybrid worship services, so you can join us each week here in person, on Zoom, or later on YouTube. If this is your first visit, welcome. We invite you to sign the visitor's book in the entryway. And whether it is your first visit or your 1000th, we are glad that you came. To help us connect better with our friends watching from home, please turn around and give a wave to the camera. Hi, everybody. At the end of the service, we will invite our friends on Zoom to turn on their cameras and return the wave. We have a few announcements today. If you have a joy or sorrow to share, please fill out the card on your chair. We invite you to bring them forward and place them in the basket after Scott rings the chimes and begins to play. There's not a basket, but you can just put them up there. Next week, thank you. Next week will be our second Sunday potluck after the service. We invite you to bring a dish to share, but even if you forget, you're welcome to stay. We always have enough for everyone. And mark your calendars now for our upcoming UU Climate Justice Revival, From an Extractive Age to a New Era, on September 28th and 29th. We're going to meet on Saturday morning for the first part of the program, followed by lunch, and then continue the weekend with a service shared by UU churches across the country to help us gear up for climate action. Any other announcements today? As we prepare to be fully together, I remind us all to silence our cell phones and devices, and we now enter a space of worship. Now it's time to light the chalice. Isabella, do you want to help me light the chalice? No. Elliot? Yeah. Ready? Please join us in our chalice lighting words. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning. Go ahead. Celebration of the life we share together.
Good morning. I have been attending services here at UUCC for about 13 years now. I credit the support that I received from my fellow members, along with that of my adorable dog Bailey, who passed away a few months ago, for giving me the strength to be able to leave an emotionally and financially abusive marriage 11 years ago. I had tried to exit the marriage 5 years prior to that and failed, sucked back in by manipulation, empty promises, and the utter exhaustion from dealing with a spouse who was also a lawyer, expertly skilled in verbal defense, deflect, and attack. He was also well-connected and well-liked in the court system through which I needed to maneuver to secure the divorce and custody arrangement for my two young. You see, on the surface, he appeared to be the perfect husband and father. And when I talked to anyone about what was happening at home, nearly everyone, including my immediate family, thought I was crazy. My now ex-husband was very happy to reinforce that opinion. In all honesty, I was a bit crazy at the time, but it wasn't of my own making, rather the result of what was happening in that relationship. But 13 years ago, here at UUCC, where my now ex-husband had no influence, no ability to use projection or gaslighting or outright lies to distort the truth, I felt seen. I was seen. I could show up as my completely broken self without judgment and without fear of negative consequences. This is why I came to church back then and why I continue to come today. And I think this is why we all come to church. Well, at least this church, to bring our whole broken selves into a sacred place where we are offered support and held in love. My sermon today will be about addiction. You see, my son, David, struggles with addiction. And to be honest, I wrote this sermon because it was healing for me, even if no one else ever read or heard these words. Partway through writing it, I considered taking the safe route and just giving one of the canned, simple Sunday services that wouldn't require me to be so vulnerable or actually even write anything. But on reflection, I decided to share what I wrote with all of you because I trust that you will allow me to show up as my full and effed up self, and I know that I will be held in your love. And I want to demonstrate that you, dear friends, can show up as your full and effed up selves too. Our opening hymn will be 122 in your gray hymnal. I joke that I worship at the altar of Mary Oliver, David White, and John O'Donohue. And the meditation today, as well as the second reading, are from John O'Donohue's book, To Bless the Space Between Us, a Book of Blessings. For an addict. On its way through the innocent night, the moth is ambushed by the light, becomes glued to a window where a candle burns, its whole self, its dreams of flight and all desire, trapped in one glazed gaze. Now nothing else can satisfy but the deadly beauty of flame. When you lose the feel for all other belonging, and what is truly near becomes distant and ghostly, and you are visited and claimed by a simplicity sinister in its singularity, no longer yourself, your mind and will owned and steered from somewhere else now, you would sacrifice anything to dance once more to the haunted music with your fatal beloved who owns the eyes of your heart. These words of blessing cannot reach even as echoes to the shore of where you are. Yet may they work without you to soften some slight line through to the white cave where your soul is captive. May some glimmer of outside light reach your eyes to help you recognize how you have fallen for a vampire. May you crash hard and soon onto real ground again, where this fundamentalist shell might start to crack for you to hear again your own echo. That your lost, lonesome heart might learn to cry out for the true intimacy of love that waits to take you home, to where you are known and seen, and where your life is treasured beyond every frontier of despair you have crossed.
Now is the time in our service to join in the spiritual practice of generosity. Our gifts of both time and money support our church in its work. Each week, we like to spotlight a group or committee and thank them for their gift of time. This week, the group is Stewardship and Fundraising. That's Pat Mells and Aaron Waller. People interested in finding out more about how to help raise money for our church, please contact Pat or Aaron or Karen Alvarez, the board director. President, 1/4 of our plate collection for the widening season goes to the Finger Lakes Accountability Network, or FLAN, a multiracial and multi-generational group of people who meet regularly and build relationships with each other in the Western Finger Lakes region of New York State. Committed to the interracial work of cultivating a culture of courage, curiosity, and commitment to dismantling systems of oppression, members of FLAN start by looking within ourselves, focusing on the necessity and joy of racial healing, ecological justice, and equitable food systems. You can give to this morning's offering by placing cash or a check into the basket or by one of the options on the screen. Please make a note that your gift is intended for today's offering. We now gratefully accept the offering. Now is the time to share our joys and sorrows. Nancy and Bob have a joy at having Bob's sister Peggy and her daughter Karen with us today. Someone had a joy about the flowers outside the church. They are gorgeous. Carrie is thrilled to have Kathy Keller back with us today. I'm happy to be back. I had a wonderful visit with my brand new grandson in California. And I will drop a pebble in the stone in our water for these and all the joys and sorrows left in the silence of our hearts. Whatever is in your heart today, we are with you.
We are with you. We have our responsive reading that we're doing this summer, and the words should be on the screen in front of you. We are the promises we make to one another. We will
Recognize the inherent value of each person.
We will
Foster a community of compassion and caring for all.
and we will
Engage respectfully
in the service of the values that unite us.
thus do we covenant with each other and with all.
Now is the time for centering, followed by shared silence. Please find yourself in a comfortable position in your seat. Shift if you need to so you can feel fully supported by what is around you, by what's holding your seat and holding your feet and holding your back. Take a nice, long, slow, deep breath into your belly and let it out with a sigh. Let's do that again. Nice, long, slow breath into your belly and let that go. May the silence we hold together continue to bring peace to our hearts. My son David is now 24 years old. He has struggled with drug addiction since he was 14. Well, maybe struggled isn't the right word because he, for the most part, hasn't been actually trying to avoid using drugs. He is currently incarcerated for violating probation again. I spoke with him a few days ago when he told me about how it was so worth it to be in jail now because he had so much fun in the weeks leading up to it, rattling off all the drugs he tried. He told me that his court-mandated stint in inpatient rehab 2 months ago convinced him that he wasn't ready yet to quit, despite all the trouble he has been getting into because the counselor there said, if you still enjoy using drugs, you aren't ready to quit yet. I'm not sure the counselor actually said that, or that is just what my son heard, but if he did say that, I am really ticked off because David got out of a month of inpatient rehab and used that statement to justify going on the biggest bender ever. blowing through more than $10,000 worth of drugs in about 6 weeks. He is lucky to still be alive. A few weeks ago, one of his friends wasn't so lucky and overdosed and died. David didn't tell me that, though. After David was arrested, one of his friends showed up at my front door, and he was the one to tell me about the overdose death of their friend. Maybe that trauma and trying to avoid the pain of it all fueled the bender further. What do I know? I was such a great parent before I actually had children. I used to be so judgmental about parents who had kids who were misbehaving. Karma is truly a bitch. Raising children is profoundly humbling. We have so much less control over their actions than we think we do. David was born in Vietnam and adopted by his father and me when he was 1.5 years old. We found out that his birth mother was an addict of some kind on our second adoption trip to Vietnam when we went to finalize the adoption and bring him home. But little is talked about in terms of mental health and addiction in Vietnam, and we never got any details. Genetic predisposition plus likely exposure in the womb set him up for addiction. I'm sure his father and I having a miserable marriage and then an even more miserable divorce didn't help his chances, though. Me talking a lot about the state of the world due to climate change probably didn't help either. I, of course, meant to encourage my children to focus on doing something with their lives that would make the world better. But instead, David felt sort of hopeless about it all, so, his attitude was, why not use drugs to avoid the ugly reality? Plus, since it's probable that we're going to have a mass extinction event due to climate change the next century, no matter what he would do to try to make a positive difference, what would be the loss, really, if he overdosed and died? That was his attitude. His death would pretty much be a drop in the bucket. He told me last week that the problem wasn't his drug use, but that he got a driver's license and a car. If not for those, he wouldn't have gotten that DUI and wouldn't be in legal trouble. His current plan is to serve out his jail term so that he won't have probation when he gets out, allowing him to go back to using whatever drugs he wants when he gets out, and he just won't drive. I reminded him that he landed himself in the emergency room in a terrible state so many times in the years prior to getting his license that I've lost count. But that didn't seem to make an impression. Occasionally, he will say something about recognizing that he is a disappointment. And once recently, he told me that he will feel bad when he's watching from wherever it is that he will go after he dies and sees me crying over his dead body. But none of that is enough to make him want to get clean. David is a smart kid. Well, young adult. He has a kind heart. He's good looking. He could make a good life for himself, even with all the mess that has already occurred, if he could just let go of using drugs. It is hard not to cling to hope for that, but I am not holding my breath. It is times like these that I lean hard into a belief that I really have no idea if it's even true, that everything in life is a lesson. Some spiritual traditions believe that our souls, while in spirit form, agree to come to earth together as a kind of soul pod to help each other learn lessons, to grow our souls, and help us reach enlightenment. I'm not sure I buy that. But I do like to ask myself, what is the universe trying to teach me when painful stuff happens in my life? I'm sure there are life lessons in the good stuff too, but somehow I don't think to reflect on the life lessons when things are going along swimmingly. So if this soul pod concept is true, David agreed while in spirit form to be an addict in this life to try to grow his soul, and I, as part of his soul pod, have to let him try to do that, even if he fails to do so in this lifetime. So while the job of all earthly moms is to try to keep our children safe, my job as a spiritual companion is to help him grow his soul. It's not that I don't care about my son and his physical life. I profoundly care. It hurts so much to watch him do this to himself. But perhaps growth won't come until he physically injures someone. I surely hope not, but it may be the case. Perhaps just getting through this lifetime without physically hurting anyone else will represent growth. Perhaps he will have an epiphany, get clean, go on to counsel others, finding something that gives his life meaning and purpose. I don't know how this is going to turn out. But growth is a two-way street in this possible spiritual reality. I'm supposed to be growing my soul too, as I go through this with David. And perhaps David won't grow at all in this lifetime, but his struggles enable me to grow. So what is it that I am supposed to be learning? Perhaps it is to be less judgmental of others. Perhaps it is to be radically open with the truth of my life, even when it is embarrassing or painful or both. Perhaps it is as simple as the recognition that there is no ability to save anyone else, which is a dang hard thing to accept as a physician. And heck, we can't even save ourselves. What is it that Mary Oliver says in her poem, A Summer's Day? Everything dies, and too soon. Perhaps the lesson is something else that I haven't even thought of yet. Perhaps it is something I will learn but won't recognize that I have learned. Perhaps I won't learn whatever that lesson is in this lifetime, and we'll need to have another go around, or 2, or 10. Whether this is how things work in the spiritual world or not, I find this way of thinking to be helpful because it helps me disengage from that frantic, yet usually futile search to fix the situation and the immediacy of the heartbreak. It helps me focus on growth rather than fear. So while I still hope with all my heart for a good outcome for David, I am less attached to what good looks like. And that allows me to do what I can while saying, we shall see. For a Prisoner by John O'Donohue. Caged in a cold, functional cell far from the comfort of home, with none of your own things in a place that is gray and grim, where sounds are seldom gentle amidst the shuffle of dumbed feet, the crossword of lost voices. The one constant note is the dead, trap-shut sound of unrelenting doors that make walls absolute. Though you have lost the outside world, may you discover the untold journey that awaits you in the inner world. May you come to recognize that though your body is imprisoned, no one can imprison your mind. May all the time you have on your hands bring you into new friendship with your mind, so that you learn to understand and integrate the darkness that brought you here. Within this limited space, may you learn to harness the stretch of time. May your compassion awaken. May you learn to recover the self you were before you lost your way, and draw from its depths some balm to heal your wounds. Behind the harsh rhythms of prison life, may you find a friend you can talk to and nurture the natural kindness to become more free in your heart and lighten the outer constraints. May your eyes look up and find the bright line of an inner horizon that will ground and encourage you for that distant day when your new feet will step out onto the pastures of freedom. If you or someone you love struggles with addiction or any other difficulty that is embarrassing or feels shameful, please know that you do not need to hide your shame under a rock. You can bring it into the light on this altar of human connection. May it be so. We're now going to sing our closing hymn, number 159, in your gray hymnal.
Please join me in our words for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thanks, Elliot.